think it's really important to not talk about the cannabis market as just a broad market. You have to be more nuanced than that. And typically we break each state into its own submarket because each state has its own cycle of going to maturity or maturation, what we would call it, to a fully stabilized market. And that's going to be different for each state. Some states are unlimited licenses states, and some are unlimited. Some are just medical markets. Some are both medical and recreational. And so all of those have a different path through. And each one of those transitions going from medical to recreational expands the universe of the population that can now buy cannabis. And so that broadens what the capacity is for that state. And so we think a lot about looking at where are we at in that process for this particular state? How many dispensaries are there per capita for the state? Are we oversupplied or undersupplied? And we want to monitor that. We also want to look at adjacent states and cross-pollination of what's happening from a population that could be immediately adjacent to the state next door that might be crossing over there, and that state might not be cannabis friendly yet, and so people are coming across. Or you may have a state like Nevada that has an incredible number of tourists that come into Las Vegas. And so we try to adjust our modeling and understanding of these markets. And we've now got a time series of data for a couple of years now to start looking at this. And so now we're getting to the point where we can start to see where are we looking for in the future? What states are going to be a better bet for a specific type of asset class than other states. So, for example, Oklahoma might not be the best place to go into because it's oversaturated in so many ways. Colorado has too many dispensaries per capita. And so these are things that we look at when we're trying to understand the landscape in making our loans to cannabis operators and making sure that they have the best chance to operate in a sustainable market. So when we think about the maturation to a fully stabilized market in each state, there's other things we have to think about. And specifically, for example, limited license states. Most states say they're going to start with a limited license, and there's a very high premium paid for those licenses to enter that market and to have an artificial market set there. But we know if you look at state policy throughout the country and history, states usually will eventually expand those policies. And we've already seen that happen in a couple of states so far. And so we have to think about, well, what will that mean if that happens in limited license states? How will that affect the values of licenses? How will that affect the maturation in that particular market? So these are things that are important to be thinking about when you're investing in a company or you're lending to a cannabis operator. The other thing we need to think about is the federal landscape, and how would that change if there is a successful case run through to the Department of Justice for the Supreme Court that allows for the interstate commerce. And if that were to happen, how does that affect limited license states if now you can start to bring in products from an unlimited license state? And so these things you need to be conscious of and think your way through that the landscape is not fully baked yet for this industry, both state level and the federal level. And we still have, other bills going through Congress, that could change this at any time. So one of the ways that interstate commerce might start is by a case being filed that would be from one state operator suing to be able to send product into another state. And the important part to think about there is that if it's illegal in the state that you are in to be able to sell out of state, you wouldn't have standing in the lawsuit to sue the other state. So the first step that needs to happen is that the state has to make it legal to ship out of state. And I think that this is an important distinction that people don't realize of why Javier Becerra is considering making this change for California. And so if you get a case that goes and sues out of state and is able to have standing in the state that it originates from because it's legal, that's how you get to the Supreme Court. And if you get to the Supreme Court, I don't think a lot of people know, but Justice Thomas, we think, is probably going to be pro on this. And I think that that could turn the 4-5, turn the conservative. He might flip with the conservatives, which would probably be against cannabis, to being with the liberals, and we might get a positive outcome there if you believe that's a positive outcome for your business plans.